It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. The key is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley as we slide into a Tuesday. Gary, how's it going?
I shake my head with that perverted sense of awe.
Yeah.
Of, just Democrats, and it's just, I just shake my head. It's really unbelievable to see this happening. You know, one of the things I've always said is I'd love to do a Vulcan mind meld, you know, with these people, just to see, what they're thinking, what's inside their brain. How does their brain actually process, thoughts?
Yeah.
And it would be fascinating. Now, I wouldn't want to stay in for a long time because when my mind comes back to, my brain and doesn't meld with theirs anymore, I might go insane, like a calculus problem, trying to figure out how I still don't understand how the hell they got there. It's just
right. Yeah.
It's almost as if there's just lightning, just being thrown out between the synapses of their brains. It's just insanity.
Yeah.
But we got a ton of audio cuts coming up today, but the illegal immigration, the riots in Los Angeles and are just dominating the entire news cycle. There's nothing else. I mean, there's nothing else out there. Everybody's covering it.
Yeah.
MSNBC had Tom Homan on.
Wow.
And if you're watching them, and you had, if you're somebody who watches MSNBC, you probably wanted to turn it off.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Because you don't want to hear, because Holman, talked about the people if they were arrested, and it was just great. We'll have that audio coming up, but I mean, I just shake my head in all of this, going, my God! And the one that went, and in fact, the White House used it. You saw the White House came out with an ad,
and
the White House came out with the ad with the reporter saying, we don't. I'm paraphrasing here. We don't know what the problem is. It's just relatively. It's just peaceful people watching cars burn.
Yeah,
like,
right.
What the hell?
Yeah. People love campfires during the summer. Yeah.
But and there's the who was it from the Mark Halperin podcast, Dan Turntine, who's a Democrat. He's without a Democrat. Here's what he had to say. Okay, here we go. All right.
Is Donald Trump potentially playing politics a little bit? I think he probably is. I find it hard to believe the timing is not a coincidence that he had a bad end to last week. That said, and this is politics in general, this both parties engage in stuff like that. I think the Democratic Party's kind of lost its mind. I think that you cannot tolerate that people are harming government property and harming federal officials executing the job that the president or the secretary of DHS or whomever has ordered them to do. Like, you just simply cannot do this.
There you go. I just wanted to play that. It started cutting up a little bit, but I saw another interview with what's it, Andy? He's always out there doing stuff. I just got mind blank. Andy Ngo?
Yeah, Andy No. Yeah,
no, Andy No. Yes. He was on Newsmax, and they were saying, you really think that Newsom and Karen Bass are, we don't buy that they're anti, U.S. And Andy No said the same thing. He just said, well, neither do I. It's just they basically need to get elected. I disagree. I disagree completely with that. Yeah. I think we need to take Democrats. You don't try to figure out people. You take them by what they say and what they do. And if you are somebody and you support a sanctuary city and you're saying that an illegal immigrant criminal, that their freedom is more important than the safety and security of American citizens, I don't know what the hell else to call you. That comes, well, they really don't believe that. They just know they can't get elected. Well, so what you're saying is they're promoting something that's completely immoral. It's against the United States, but it's okay because they wish to get elected by that. That having any type of moral ground or having any type of belief that we should protect American citizens from criminals and illegal immigrant criminals should be something that nobody has a problem standing up for, and they do. Well, they are, I don't know, they're anti-U.S. citizens.
Yeah.
They're saying that the freedom of illegal immigrant criminals is more important than the safety and security of American citizens. I don't know what you want to call that, how you want to label it, but it isn't pro-America.
Right. Yeah, it's it's very interesting how this is playing out. And of course, now that's these protests are now going on all over the U.S. There's, this and the lawsuit between California and the Trump administration. Look, the administration has every right to protect its agents. And if they believe, again, that locals aren't handling that job, then they are bound. It's their duty to protect those agents' federal property. And ultimately, to protect law-abiding citizens who are not destroying property, who are not burning property. They have an obligation to do that. And I thought to myself, the Trump administration probably saw that coming, a lawsuit coming from the state of California, and I don't think they have a problem with that.
No, this is, you heard Dan Turntine said that, there's politics. That's the dumbest argument I've ever heard. I mean, stop with the politics. Everything is politics. Of course, they're politicians. That's like saying, did you hear Eric and Gary tonight? Did you know that they're behaving like talk show hosts?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, come on. I mean, it's talk radio.
Right.
The left used to do that. Well, you're in conservative talk radio? Yeah, and what's your point? Well, you're remember, you're a Rush wannabe.
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay, even if I was a Rush wannabe, am I wrong on the issues?
Right. Let's take the conversation. Let's take the issues one by one and go through them, and it doesn't matter why we're talking about them. It doesn't matter if somebody's running for office on them. Are those the issues? Isn't that, by the way, why people serve? People serve based on the issues.
Right.
They serve based on handling the issues for the American people, and they make promises that they're going to handle certain issues. And when it comes to issues, illegal immigration and the economy, we're neck and neck for number one in 2024. This should not be a shock to anybody. In fact, this should be the biggest well-duh moment. The left was always going to get to this point. We wondered how long it would take for the riots to come back when Donald Trump was reelected. Here we are. And it's on immigration, an 80-20 issue that they lose all day, or 97-3 issue they lose all day long.
I believe that Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass believe that it is okay. Did you see, he came out yesterday. You see, but we'll have it. But he's coming out now saying it's wrong what they're doing, the violence. Well, that wasn't the first thing out of your mouth.
No.
And what you're doing is you're saying you are enabling and you are blaming the president because the president has said, and Homan went through the whole thing. He clarified what the ICE raids were about, the conspiracy, the money laundering, everything else. They were targeting, specific individuals.
Right.
And, because of and he went through it on MSNBC, they had no response to it. But Gavin Newsom, Karen Bass, they want the protest. They want the destruction of public property in order to ensure that illegal immigrant criminals, violent criminals, drug dealers, money launderers, they want them. There's no other. That's not a shocking statement at all.
No.
It's what they want. I'm observing what they're saying. And when they're lying, number one, about what's going on, the only conclusion I come to is you're lying because you wish to protect the illegal immigrant criminal. I'm not going to sit there and say, well, they're just running for office. Stop that. They can't get elected in California. Well, then they shouldn't care about getting elected in California. Well, look, I'm just a politician. I'm defending these people attacking police officers and destroying public property and rioting in cities. So the regular people can't do their business because I need to get elected. So that makes it moral for me, even though I personally don't believe in it. Mm-hmm. Stop that crap. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Don't make excuses for them. For example, on Newsmax, when they had Andy Ngo on, don't make excuses for them. If they say something, take them at face value.
Right.
Well, they actually don't hate it. Well, then what's their motivation? Do they, if they prioritize the freedom and will say, will lie about what happened and will enable and be in favor of the rioting, the protesting, the destruction of property because they lie about what's happening, then what am I supposed to call them? Well, when they prioritize the freedom of illegal immigrant criminals over the safety and security of citizens of the United States and over the safety and security of law enforcement, which is carrying out the laws from our elected representatives in Congress, then I don't know what the hell else to call them. They're not pro-America.
No, look, sanctuary policy was designed to give protection and deference to people who aren't here legally, including violent criminals and gang members.
Right. Specifically with the sanctuary cities, though, the focus is on not cooperating with criminals.
Right.
We're talking criminals outside of breaking the law, being here illegally.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, you shake your head. I mean, all day yesterday, I'm like, these people.
When they for months are still, in fact, they're still saying Maryland man, Maryland man, Maryland man. This is exactly what you're going to get. Well, it's, they don't, believe this and they don't believe this, or no, I know exactly who they are. They need this chaos. Governor Newsome is incompetent as a liberal. Now, think about what I just said. He's an incompetent liberal. He can't get the liberal agenda done. He tries to soft sell things. He's just weak. That's his problem. He can't pull the trigger. He can't do the deed. We saw it during the wildfires. We've seen it multiple times. Mayor Bass, same thing. These individuals are weak. And if they're calling smoking weed but not drinking California sober, well, they're California liberal in that they can't get the radical, hard-drinking agenda done. And California used to lead the way in that. They are radical. They are hardcore liberals. They just can't get it done because they're weak individuals. They can't take a stand. They don't have any conviction whatsoever. Another California liberal tried that by running for president in 2024 and then wanted people to believe she was going to build a wall and she was stronger on the border than Donald J. Trump. It's garbage. She might be the weakest in the entire party.
Where did I see it yesterday? There was an article out there. I think I printed it that said, well, there's Newsom's chance of being president.
Exactly.
And then after I saw that article, I saw Newsom saying, it's terrible what these people are doing out on the streets.
Yeah, right.
I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, boy.
Yeah.
Somebody in his PR office said, you got to find a way to change.
This guy's, he reminds me of a George Clooney character in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, who wakes up every morning, how's my hair? He doesn't have any conviction.
And I go back and we'll have this audio because we have a ton of audio, Katie Pavlich, because they were saying, they were asking the question on their on special report, how can Democrats possibly pivot on this? They've got to pivot. And she said exactly what we have said. Mm-hmm. I don't believe they want to.
No, they don't want to.
They don't believe in any type of deportation, including that of hardened criminals.
What would a pivot look like?
Right.
A pivot, so you're going to turn around. So you're going to turn this all around and say, okay, we need to start arresting people, or we need to start detaining people at the very least. We need to start deporting people. We need to tell me what a turnaround looks like. A pivot looks like. There is no pivot for the left here.
They believe that hardened criminals should remain, that are not U.S. citizens, should remain in their cities.
Yeah. Yep.
There's no other way to look at it.
Yep.
And you think about the 2024 election, then this thing popping up, and it's just like, you're just shaking your head. Everything from and by the way, the White House is monitoring it because they got Cory Booker, and when with the stuff that he said. We have Akeem Jeffries that just couldn't answer the question yesterday.
Yeah.
They can't think about this. They can't sit there and say Donald Trump is right for going after hardened criminals.
Right.
That are here inside the United States illegally.
I was watching that Hakeem Jeffries video. It was a small, short clip when he said that, and I thought, oh, my gosh.
I know.
This guy's, because he's a radical, but he couldn't go there.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Hey there, Hope Savara here with Mother Trucker Yoga, and this is your health tip of the day. Healthy driver, healthy diesel, powered by House. Neck strain can really be a pain, especially after long hours behind the wheel. Did you know neck pain affects nearly 70% of drivers at some point in their career? So let's loosen things up. Sit tall and tip your head to your right shoulder. Now pull your left shoulder down gently and hold for 10 seconds. Switch sides, left ear to left shoulder, right shoulder pulls down and hold for 10. Now roll your shoulders 5 big circles forward and 5 back. Open your mouth wide and stretch your jaw. Hold for 10. Close and repeat that 2 more times. Finally, take a deep breath in through your nose, pause, and exhale through your mouth. There you go. Small, simple changes lead to big results so that you can feel good again. Visit mothertruckeryoga.com and houseproducts.com for more info.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thanks so much for being here this morning. And from what I know, still in the last hour, riots still going on in L.A. I guess in Dallas, they're mostly over. It wasn't riots, though. It was it was a protest. They threw a couple of firecrackers.
I think there were a couple of people detained, is what WFAA in Dallas is reporting. And the Dallas Police Department put out a statement saying, we're just going to basically be standing here observing and keeping the citizens and the people who work in Dallas safe. We have no problem with people who are lawfully out demonstrating. Basically was the gist of their message.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Friday Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning as the riots continue in L.A. Mike Johnson, House Speaker, holding a press conference yesterday. And, of course, the questions come up about members of Congress who have come out in support of what's going on in L.A.
Jordan Conrad's Gateway Pundit. A lot of people want to know, are we going to see consequences for these Democratic lawmakers who are inciting riots and violence in California and calling for insurrections across the nation?
Yeah, it's a real concern. It's beneath any member of Congress. We should be supporting the rule of law and obviously upholding federal law. And that's what's being flouted in California. That's a shame. With regard to what the consequences are, not sure yet. There'll be a lot of discussion about that. I mean, Congress has limited power to control our own. I mean, there are censures and those types of activities. But in the meantime, I would just encourage my colleagues to think very seriously, think very hard about that. The Democrats are making a terrible political calculation. They are on the side of lawbreakers. They are on the side of illegal aliens. They are on the side of, in some cases, MS-13 members and people who have abused their spouses. I mean, they're on the wrong side of this. The American people do not want violent criminals from other countries illegally in the U.S. I mean, this is a very common sense position that we've taken, and the Republican Party is standing for the deportation of these dangerous people. ICE is involved in that. It is their job to do so. And they are following the will of the country. The people don't want dangerous people here. This is the easiest question that they should be able to answer, but they don't.
I know it should be the easiest question. Here's this was on a special report, and Katie Pavlich was asked part of the panel asked a question, and I think gave the exact right answer.
I think there's any way that the Democrats at this point could pivot from their messaging on this?
I don't think the issue for Democrats is messaging. It's that they have a deep-seated belief that any kind of deportation is wrong, including of hardened criminals that ICE is trying to get out of places like California. And there's also raids going on in other states, but you're not seeing this massive response because in Texas, for example, they don't necessarily put up with allowing these riots to come forward. And also they work with the federal government on the local level to prevent these things from happening and also to keep these criminal illegal aliens in their jails so it's easier and safer for ICE agents to go into these communities and get them from jail rather than going through neighborhoods, et cetera, et cetera. But you have to understand that the president is looking at this with the backdrop in the context of the 2020 riots, which were the most expensive riots in the history of the country, where blue city mayors and blue state governors did not get these riots under control. And they don't want to see this escalating as the summer goes on.
There you go. Well, he's not losing on this at all.
No.
You know, if you look at the politics of it, it's just so easy. I mean, just look at, you know, the whole you can throw the whole Garcia thing into it too, because that's all a part of it. Here's Jonathan Turley on the whole Garcia situation.
This is not the guy that National Public Radio described as living quietly in Maryland. I mean, the indictment is really incredible reading, about over 100 trips, and the allegation that he was a central part in a massive human smuggling operation. The irony here, Lawrence, is that the United States is now the last place Abrego Garcia wants to be. He's like a runner caught between first and second. He's going to get tagged out either way, but by getting back to second, he's looking at over a decade of jail potentially.
I mean, just everything that they jump behind it's pure insanity. I mean, that's the thing. I sit every day and just shake my head going, what is their end goal as politicians? I know what the end goal of the riots is. They want ICE out of the community. They want to get public opinion. They're not going to succeed, but they want public opinion to drive ICE from removing criminal illegal immigrants.
Yeah.
Because it's everything now. It's not about, well, no, we need to let the criminals need to be taken out of the country, but there are people that have been here a long time and they have children and they've built it. That's not even the argument anymore.
No.
The argument here is no, everybody gets to stay. The citizens, the peaceful law-abiding citizens, to hell with you, the freedom of illegal immigrant, violent criminals, gang member criminals, drug dealing criminals. Their freedom is more important to the Democratic Party than you.
Yeah, that's it. Again, if they were logical, if they wanted to pivot, then they would have done that during the interim period after the November 24 election. They would have started by maybe easing up on some of the sanctuary policy. We knew that wasn't going to happen. My point is, if there were ever going to be a big moment on that pivot, it would have been then. And that's never going to happen. They're willing to go to battle. This is one of the hills they want to die on. They have no problem fighting this thing to the bitter end. And ultimately, for people like Bass and Newsom, it's about power. But again, Newsom is so weak. The moment the wind blows in the opposite direction, well, what they're doing is bad. We talked about it. We did this, several summers ago when they were rioting, and we're asking, what about the locals who have to be fuming over this? And the local leaders are saying we need to basically nurture more of this kind of protest and destruction of property in our cities. Well, eventually you got to face, your voters, and we have no idea which way it goes. But there's no way you can tell me in the aftermath of the LA fires that Gavin Newsom is on solid ground and has confidence in by the people of California to handle these riots in LA.
You think about our thought process. I would never think of blocking any public road.
No.
I would expect that if I was blocking a public road, I would be immediately arrested.
Yep.
And I don't know where people believe that they can just set up. Now, as we know, in Washington, D.C. and in other areas, if you get a permit, a lot of times it doesn't happen during drive time, but you can on a Saturday morning, for example, have a huge protest.
Yeah.
And they'll, detour, police will detour it, but you get a permit in order to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the fact that, and we don't think about it, I think we should think about this more often, just the attempt to block a road. Remember back in 2020 when the protesters tried to block I-35 outside of Dallas and were cleared very quickly there.
Mm-hmm.
But where is it that you believe? Where is it that, how do you get to the point where I believe that I can disrupt your day by trespassing, because that's what you're doing at that point, on public roads, blocking traffic? Who the hell ever got to the point of saying, I want to protect criminal illegal immigrants, so don't bother me.
Yeah.
I'm a peaceful protester blocking a road.
Yeah.
You're not a peaceful protester if you're blocking a road.
No.
You are breaking the law if you do that. I couldn't get away with it. You couldn't get away with it.
Right.
Just blocking the road itself like that is a criminal act. It's a dangerous act.
Yes. Yep.
Cars come up upon it, somebody can get killed. That's why we have sidewalks.
Yeah.
Because people can get killed on roads. So you have no right to block a road because, well, my protest matters, so I get to block a road and I get to make, your day less safe and I get to disrupt your day. Where is it written that I have a right to disrupt your day in a public road?
Nope. No, I mean, the laws are written about around the safety of individuals, motorists, and pedestrians alike. That's why the laws are in place. You don't get to go block the highway, the roadway. Remember when there were protests here a few years ago And Dallas PD came out and said, the chief came out and said, if you're blocking a highway, we're taking you to jail, period.
Yeah. Well, I'll get pulled over for a broken taillight.
Yeah.
Yeah, people can just walk onto a major highway?
Right. Well,
Are you
if you're
kidding me?
if you're on a freeway on a bicycle, think about that.
Yeah.
As a mode of transportation. Now, there are bicycle lanes in neighborhoods, but if you just got on the freeway on your bicycle, that's not going to work.
No.
It's not safe.
Yeah, I think you have to get right to the starting point there, which is forget about even throwing rocks or doing that, which of course is an assault. But you have no right to block a road.
Right.
And there seems to be this assumption on the left, we're peaceful protesters. We shouldn't be held accountable for anything. We can block a road. It's our right to block a road. There is no right to block a road.
No. You have the right to lawfully access the road as other motorists do. You don't have the right to occupy that space as a matter of protest as a pedestrian. Nope.
No.
Don't get to do that. And, you and I in the pre-show meeting, we're going back and forth. All right. Why do they think they can do something that's against the law? They don't care about the law.
Yeah, they don't.
These are radicals who believe the laws don't apply to them. And why do they believe the laws don't apply to them? Because the Democratic Party, the radical left, has indoctrinated people. And it doesn't even matter if people didn't grow up here in the U.S. The mindset itself is instant when you have sanctuary policy. Laws don't apply. We're not going to lawfully cooperate with the federal government. We're going to, in fact, give deference to even criminals and gang members who are here. And we have help from the liberal activist media in doing it. Maryland man is still being used. This is how they go throughout their day, making it sound like something it's not. If they can get the Maryland man thing and they can keep that going for any amount of time, again, it's an 80-20, 90-10, 97-3 issue. They don't even care. This is the side that believes it's an 80-20 issue because we're not shouting enough. We're not burning enough cars. We're not destroying enough property. That's the reason it's 80-20, because we, the mob, haven't intimidated enough people into getting into line with us.
I'm just reading here, just following X, some of the independent reporters there, and Cam Higbee, who we have followed now for a couple of years, especially when these things happen, because he's right in the middle of it. He said, update, because, they said this is an illegal gathering.
Yeah.
And they were arresting everybody. They actually got people cordoned off and said everybody gets arrested.
Right.
And so, Cam Higbee, update, I was taken into custody by LAPD. I have been released. Stay tuned for more info. They don't know whether you're a reporter or not, so they bring you in. But they were saying, they made it clear, the reporters, anybody reporting on it can go.
Right.
But I just saw from Cam Higbee from 14 minutes ago. So,
yeah.
Wow.
Interesting.
It's just, just an amazing last couple of days, because you cannot believe the stupidity or what the left and what the Democratic Party is attempting to defend. You're just shaking your head saying, where do you think your support's going to come from this?
Right.
It's so bad. 866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up on the top of the hour, more on the riots in L.A. And also, Greta has been kidnapped.
Yeah, really? Okay.
You saw that yesterday,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
She put out her video. If this video's out, it means I've been kidnapped by the Israeli military.
Okay. All right.
Oh, my God.
Right along the lines of, back in the day, President Trump and his stormtroopers were kidnapping people off the streets. Remember that?
Yeah.
The liberals trying to do that. I've been kidnapped by the Israelis. All right, Greta. Well, the good news is you haven't become over dramatic about it.
Yet.
Kidnapped. Come on.
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Welcome. I just found this audio cut from Conan Nolan from NBC LA. All right. Listen to what he says about Trump. Okay, here we go.
All right.
We have never seen, I certainly haven't in my 40 years here, a ICE raid in the Garment District downtown, which is high profile. You can do those kind of raids in any state in the country, any red state. You can do it in Texas, but he chose L.A. And that's because I think President Trump has it in for California. It is a state that doesn't like him, and it hasn't in any way of these ever since he's been on the ballot. And so it's the deep blue state. This is the place he wanted to target. And I think, frankly, it has helped him out immeasurably, because the scenes of Mexican flags show the rest of the country and his base we're being invaded. The scenes of violence, look at what I'm doing to stop the violence. It's playing right into their hands.
Yes, so apparently that means by Mr. Nolan's very, very non-articulate or specific comments that he believes that criminal illegal immigrants are not being sought in any red state.
Right. Yeah. Why would you look there? I mean, because there aren't any. We want to go back to Harry Reid. There are no illegals that are working construction in my state. The late Harry Reid, speaking of his state, Nevada at the time. Because we all know they only exist in blue states.
Right. That
I'm sure Tom Homan would tell you that. We don't even have any ICE agents in red states.
Exactly,
we only have them in blue states. I'm sure that was a direct quote that I'm making up right now by Tom Homan.
Yeah. Mr. Nolan, have some self-awareness, have a clue, understand what you actually communicated there was pure idiocy.
Here's what you could have said. While ICE may be targeting in other states, there's no doubt that Trump gets a special satisfaction from this happening in California, knowing that it's a blue state, but also knowing that the policies work directly against him. By the way, that would be accurate in that the sanctuary policy of California is widely known. And also, the question would be, are there illegals in California? If the answer is yes, which, by the way, it is, then ICE should be targeting illegals in California. That it's not complicated. How Trump feels about it, what kind of emotion he gets from it, means two things, diddly and squat, as long as he and ICE are playing by the book, and there's zero reason to believe they're not.
And that was childish analysis.
Of course.
Because when you figured out what he was communicating, he's trying to communicate the message that Trump's only going after illegal immigrants in blue states.
Yeah.
Because it gives him this special satisfaction because they didn't vote for him.
Right.
Well, I don't know any evidence that supports that.
No.
That ICE is not working
Right.
everywhere across the country
Right.
to look for criminal illegal immigrants, the priority, criminal illegal immigrants and immigrants that have deportation orders. If you're trying to make the case that that's not happening in red states, you should, as a news person, present some evidence talking about your 40 years of expertise. You ought to be smarter, or being in the business, you ought to be smarter than to throw out and communicate something that there's no evidence at all to prove because it's an emotional response from you. That's what it was. It was an emotional response from him, which, again, is the reason that the media has, the reputation that they have right now, where people don't trust them and people look at them and say, you're political activists, you're not news people.
Right. Yeah, there was an ICE raid in Texas, I don't know, several days ago. 4, 5, 6 days ago?
No.
Yeah.
No, there's none in
By
Texas.
the way, I brought up the comment from Harry Reid on construction, and these raids took place at construction sites. ICE, there's where we're at on this level of it is where we were at. Remember the bus thing with Governor Abbott? And it turns out the federal government under Joe Biden was actually sending more people, illegals to states, and immigrants also to other states. Well, we were at the point during that it came to a point where they were saying these people are being put on buses, not that they were voluntarily getting on buses. They're being put on buses and shipped to other states.
Mm-hmm.
That's false.
Yeah.
They volunteered to get on those buses and go to the other states. So we're at this point now of, we got to create something that isn't true. Make it, again, this is the only thing the left has. You have to lie about what's going on. And here's the thing. The boomerang of that becomes exactly what it was with the whole thing of Governor Abbott using buses. Well, ultimately, it's a win for not only Governor Abbott, but the people who want a strong border in general, and a win for the right politically, because that's where this is going to go. When they keep telling lies like this, it always boomerangs and comes back, because the question would be, for people who aren't wonks, that aren't following this day to day, and of course, right now with the riots in L.A., you're probably everybody's hearing about it. Everybody knows about it. But if you're not following every detail all day, every day, and then at the end of your day, you hear something like this, your question would be, well, are there illegals in those states, in those blue states? Well, if they are, then who cares why, what political satisfaction Trump might get from operating or sending ICE to those states. The fact of the matter is that they lose all day, and you can tell they're losing by the size of and the number of the lies they use.
Well, do you remember when the Biden administration said, well, we're going to be investigating and looking at what Governor Abbott's doing in Texas because we believe this may be human trafficking.
Yeah, right.
Remember that?
Yes.
They're human trafficking.
Yeah.
They're forcing people into the buses.
Yeah.
So this is human trafficking.
Right.
Remember that? And, and they went after DeSantis for that, too, early on.
Yep.
It's like human trafficking. Whatever happened to that? It was a load of horse manure. That's why.
Exactly.
It didn't go anywhere. It was just another lie. Let's come up with just, anything, and we'll just throw it against the wall to see whether it sticks or not. But I want to get to the president here because Newsom said that the president wanted to start a civil war by doing all this. Here we go.
What do you do you make of the fact that he says you want a civil war on the streets of America?
No, that's just the opposite. I don't want a civil war. A civil war would happen if you left it to people like him. And I liked him. I always got along with him. Never had a problem with him. But he's grossly incompetent.
It's true. He is. He's weak.
He was trolling yesterday
when
he said,
gosh.
Holman should arrest him. And the media went nuts.
Yeah.
And they go, well, what is his crime? And he goes, being governor, basically. I'm paraphrasing it, but being governor, the job he's doing as governor. I mean, it was hilarious.
It's a crime. And it was tongue-in-cheek, of course, and the media gets all, yeah, calm down.
Well, and then we get to what, because it's a political argument now. I mean, this goes, this is on CNN, and CNN, Wolf Blitzer was interviewing, can't believe he went to the same high school that I did.
I can't believe you keep bringing it up.
I got a buddy of mine that always harasses me. It's like, well, your high school always talks about him. They never talk about you.
By the way,
this is a buddy of mine.
Yeah.
He goes, they should talk about you more often. I went, probably that's not going to happen.
He still wants your lunch money, by the way.
Now, he's much older than me. He graduated.
That's why he needs your lunch money.
Many years before I did. Yes, he bullied me.
Yeah.
But yeah, he went to, he's a graduate of Kenmore West High School in Kenmore, New York. But he's interviewing Biden's former Pentagon spokesperson, now a CNN analyst, about whether it's legal for Trump with the National Guard and the Marines and all that. Here we go.
As you know, President Donald Trump has ordered the deployment of some 2,000 National Guard troops to Los Angeles. Is this an appropriate use of the United States military?
Well, thanks, Wolf, for having me on. It is a legal use of the United States military. The president does have the authorization to do that. The difference here is how he's doing it is completely unprecedented.
Okay, so there we go. Here's the political argument. So it's legal. All right?
Yeah.
It's legal.
Yeah.
It's legal what he's doing.
Yes.
But it's unprecedented. And then I look at it and I'm like, well, but isn't it unprecedented to have riots and the attacks on federal property and police officers and police vehicles and violence in the streets with the message that we want illegal immigrants that have committed violent crimes, that are gang members, to stay in our community? Let's take that political argument about what's unprecedented and what drives. If you view what Trump is doing as unprecedented, that's your political argument. What is it in response to? And is that unprecedented? And which one does the American public care more about? The wonkiness of whether the president, well, is it right? It's unprecedented. No president has done anything like this that we can tell. Yeah, but when was the last riot over the fact that the federal government was trying to get rid of illegal immigrant criminals? Because that's what we'll get to what Holman said, why they went after them. This was a conspiracy. This was actually a conspiracy of people that they were going after for a whole bunch of different crimes. Now, they said, well, are you saying that every single person that you get is, has committed a crime? He goes, no. If you're caught up in it, if we go in and we go after you and everybody in there's an illegal immigrant, you're going through the system too. To be deported. He didn't hesitate from that at all. Which the American people, that's what they want. But when she said that there, I'm like, okay, there's a political argument. Well, what Trump is doing is unprecedented. Unprecedented response to what? What's it? Well, riots that are supporting and meant to intimidate the federal government to not arrest illegal immigrant gang members, criminals, violent criminals, murderers.
And an unprecedented in recent years during the Biden administration unprecedented amounts of people crossing the border illegally.
Yeah. Try to win that argument with the American people.
Well,
you're not going to.
Again, that goes back to the non-walk coming home, end of the day, and someone says that it's not illegal, but it's unprecedented, and that person's probably looking at the TV or their tablet or whatever they're watching it on, going, wait a minute, hold on a second. Yeah, it is unprecedented. It should be. We're seeing an unprecedented rise in illegal crossings, and saw that during the Biden years. Then the response to that is going to be unprecedented. Good job. What else you got? Unprecedented. And by the way, the other thing too of this, they all have to be qualified as, criminals or gang members or anything. No, they don't. ICE, enforcement, border enforcement. That's what this is. There doesn't need to be a qualifier. You're setting a priority, but that doesn't mean it's a qualifier. And it shouldn't be. Go after everybody who's here illegally and deport as many as you can. Full stop.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
Owner-operators with authority generally have two options when it comes to sourcing freight. Brokers on the spot market or directly from the source, the shipper. As any trucker with relatively recent experience with spot freight knows, the highs of working the load boards can be really high. On the other side of that coin, however, when the market flips in favor of shippers, it can be tough to keep your business afloat working with brokers. The smallest carriers with direct customers, however, can hang on through tough times or even prosper, as long as demand for their customers' product remains at least somewhat stable. Owner-operators in it for the long haul make direct business with customers a principal goal. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section of the website for more detail on this and many other topics.
Brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. We'll have more audio coming up here. There's just a ton of it here from just the last 24 hours or so, plus Jonathan Turley Moore on the legalities of the president sending in the National Guard. And I guess now the Marines, who will have a non-law enforcement, by the way, non-law enforcement job.
Right.
As they have said, basically to be, I guess, inside the federal buildings to protect federal buildings.
Yep.
But and again, you see it across the board, whether it was the former Obama Pentagon spokesperson. You had, I know Jonathan Turley talked about, you had a, I forgot who it was, a liberal legal expert say, yeah, he does have the ability to do this. It's a Berkeley law professor, Dean Irwin, has admitted, unfortunately, President Trump likely has the legal authority to do this.
Yeah.
Of course, he's going to say, unfortunately. Why? Because Turley makes the point, he doesn't want this thing to escalate. Well, he doesn't want it to become a massive, right. He wants to put a stop to it now, which he has the absolute right to do, and he has the absolute right to protect federal property. And federal agents.
Yep.
This is an attack on federal agents.
And to liberal, including this liberals, to liberal radicals, it's the law for them is unfortunate. The law works to protect people, and it is unfortunate. They don't care about the law. Yeah, unfortunately, that's the law. Unfortunately, that's the Constitution. Unfortunately, this is the country we live in. Well, get the hell out. Go. Bye. See ya. Go see what it gets you in other countries. Oh, wait. No other country is as great. This is too easy. This is, in fact, easier than karate. Liberal Berkeley professor means diddly and squat. Because your brains are non-existent.
Except when it comes to gender transition.
Yeah, right.
Then they're the experts, right?
Yeah. Do they teach that at Berkeley? Is that a course they have at Berkeley? Can you major in that?
Gender studies, probably, yeah.
Gender studies you can, but transition, you major in transition, maybe.
Catch all 5 hours of the show live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thank you so much for being here. Download our Red Eye Radio app today, and you can listen when and where you choose. So, reading here from Jonathan Turley's column here, and it's pretty good because it lays out all the facts that really justify what Trump is doing here. Again, the admission is already there that what Trump is doing is legal. He can do this.
Yeah, right.
And so it gets into the political argument, but he hits both the political argument, I think, and also the legal argument here, and uses Democrats' own words against him. He said Gavin Newsom was in his element this week. After scenes of burning cars and attacks on ICE personnel, Newsom declared that this was all an illegal act, an immoral act, an unconstitutional act. No, he was not speaking of the attacks on law enforcement or property. He was referring to President Donald Trump's call to deploy National Guard, the National Guard to protect federal officers. Newsom is planning to challenge the deployment as cities like Glendale are canceling contracts to house detainees and reaffirming that local police will not assist the federal government. Trump has the authority under Section 12406 of Title 10 of the U.S. Code to deploy the National Guard if the president is unable with the regular forces to execute the laws of the United States. The administration is saying that is precisely what's unfolding in California, where mob attack vehicles and trap federal personnel. Most critics are challenging the deployment on policy grounds, arguing that it is an unnecessary escalation. However, even critics like Berkeley Law Professor Dean Irwin have admitted that, quote, unfortunately, President Trump likely has the legal authority to do this, end of quote. There is a fair debate as to whether that's needed at this time, but the president is allowed to reach a different conclusion. Trump wants to end the violence now, as opposed to escalating as it did in the Rodney King riots or the later riots after the George Floyd killings, causing billions in property damage and many deaths. Courts will be asked to halt the order because it did not technically go through Newsom to formally call out the National Guard. Section, though, 12406 grants Trump the authority to call out the National Guard and employs a mandatory term for governors who shall issue the president's order. In the memo, Trump also instructed federal officials to coordinate with the governors of states and the National Guard Bureau. Newsom is clearly refusing to issue the orders or coordinate the deployment. Even if such challenges are successful, Trump can clearly flood the zone with federal authority. Indeed, the obstruction could escalate the matter further, prompting Trump to consider the Insurrection Act, which would allow troops to participate directly in civilian law enforcement. In 1958, Eisenhower used the Insurrection Act to deploy troops to Arkansas to enforce the Supreme Court orders ending racial segregation in schools. The Trump administration has already claimed that these riots constitute a form of rebellion against the authority of the government of the United States. In support of such a claim, the administration could cite many of the Democratic leaders now denouncing that claim. Why? January 6th. After January 6th, liberal politicians and professors insisted that the riot was an insurrection, and in claiming that Trump and the dozens of Republicans could be removed from ballots under the 14th Amendment. Liberal professors insisted that Trump's use of the word fight and questioning the results of the election did qualify as an insurrection. They argued you merely needed to show an assemblage of people who are resisting law and using force or intimidation for a public purpose. The involvement of insightful language from politicians only reinforced those claims. Sound familiar? Democrats are using this order to deflect from their own escalation of tensions for months. Listen to this now. This is great because of what they've done. You look at it and you say, well, wait a minute. The Democrats in these states are actually coming out against with federal law.
Yeah.
He goes, from Minnesota Governor Tim Walz calling ICE officers Gestapo and others calling them fascists and Nazis. Democratic leaders have been ignoring objections that they are fueling the violent and criminal response. It did not matter to them. It was viewed as good politics. When Newsome and figures like Senator Cory Booker have called these peaceful protests, rocks and Molotov cocktails have been thrown at police as vehicles were torched. Police had to use tear gas, flashbang grenades, and rubber bullets to quell these, quote, peaceful protesters. There appears to be little interest in de-escalation for the Trump administration. Images of rioters celebrating, rioters riding in celebration around burning cars with Mexican flags are only likely to reinforce the support of the majority of Americans for enforcement of immigration laws. For Democrats, they've gone all in for opposing ICE and these enforcement operations despite support from only roughly 30% of the public. Some Democrats are now playing directly to the mob. A Los Angeles City Council member, Eunice Hernandez, reportedly urged anti-law enforcement protesters to escalate their tactics against ICE officers. They know how quickly we mobilize. That's why they're changing their tactics, because community defense works, and our resistance has slowed them down. And if they're escalating their tactics, and so are we, when they show up, we're going to show up even stronger. So L.A. officials are maintaining the sanctuary status of the city, barring the cooperation of local police, and calling on citizens to escalate their resistance after a weekend of violent attacks. Others have posted the locations of ICE facilities to allow better tracking of operations, while cities like Glendale are closing facilities. In Washington, Hakeem Jeffries has pledged to unmask the identities of individual ICE officers who have been covering their faces to protect themselves and families from growing threats. While Democrats have not succeeded in making a convincing political case for opposing immigration enforcement, they may be making a stronger case for the federal deployment in increasingly hostile blue cities. And that's a great point.
Yeah.
That the
Right.
Trump administration, what do you mean? What are you talking about? We have organized resistance from the state of California, from the city of Los Angeles. They wish to disrupt. They wish to harm our federal personnel and federal vehicles.
And now it's on record. I mean, there's no way to get around that with the governor and his lawsuit against the Trump administration. That's going to go badly. That's going to go very badly.
Yeah.
Trump is well within his rights, and we suspected that it would probably get to this point. Watching it after Trump came in, after January 20th, even before then, we knew how local leaders, not just in California, but how in blue states and blue cities, how they were talking about how they were going to resist against ICE. And here we are. It's playing out right now. And if you're going to offer that kind of, again, battling against them, my gosh, could there be charges against some of these local leaders? And it depends on the actions that are taken from this point on. You know, if they were to say something, if they were to encourage something, if they are ordering police to do something. I mean, again, how far do they take it? We're not at that point yet.
Right. But when you look at,
but how far do they go?
When we saw January 6th, we said, look what the president said. The entire context, it was a riot.
Right.
What happened there was a riot.
Right.
It wasn't an insurrection.
No.
But Democrats called it an insurrection and they can use that. They can say, look, they called this an insurrection.
Right.
Now the what we see here now, but that was a riot gone out of control.
Right.
They're calling it an insurrection because of going in and the fact that when you're inside the building and you're trespassing and you're pushing federal personnel at that particular point, that's what they're trying to focus on as part of the insurrection.
Right.
Well, if you look at what Trump's going to say here, this has been coordinated months, years upon years, months upon months that we're going to do it. Look at what these Democrats have said. Look how they have openly gone after it. Look how we know the doxing of federal agents and what the minority leader said. You have an active group of liberal Democrats that are encouraging unlawful actions against federal law enforcement.
Yep.
And doing everything they can to enable the mob against them. We don't believe as a federal government, we can't trust the state of California to protect our federal property or our federal ICE agents. So we're going to have to do it ourselves.
Yeah.
Wow. That's not an argument that's a loser with the American public. They go, well, yeah, it's ridiculous what's going on here.
Right. And it's not going to end well for local leaders. It's not going to end well for Gavin Newsom. Politically, they live inside their blue bubble. It's not that they can't win elections in the future, but you couple this with Gavin Newsom's horrible non-existence, basically, during the L.A. fires. Complete incompetence. I mean, weak as a liberal. He's weak.
By the way, after seeing Fetterman coming out and saying breaks with Democrats, condemns L.A. riots, anarchy, and true chaos, he may be at the top now of the presidential list for Democrats that have the best chance of winning.
Well, it's, again, they don't care about the law. They don't care about their own citizens. They care about the chaos. They care about maintaining the power. Inside that blue bubble, they think they're fine. But Newsom, honestly, as a governor, he's just absolutely weak. But he's already started. The question is, how do they make the pivot? He's already tried to, just even put his toe in the water on the pivot. Well, we don't like what's going on. This isn't right that this violence is going on. Yeah, well, you can't say that now.
Look, we know that, yesterday, in fact, we had a couple of calls from California on this, from our great California stations. And, they're just horrified and hate what's going on there.
Yeah.
But understand the majority of the voters who have voted liberal, voted for Bass, voted for Newsom.
Yep.
This is what they want.
Right. These are the radicals. This is again, they embrace the power. The people in power embrace the power. The radicals are leading the party. The radicals will not go away. There's not going to be a pivot by the radicals. The radicals want this battle to continue, and they also want it to escalate.
Mm-hmm. It's what they want.
This is this is playing out as they planned and as they wish.
866-98 Red Eye.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thanks so much for being here this morning. Coming up following the top of the hour, Gavin Newsome and what he's doing to his political career.
Yeah.
He wanted to be president. You know, it's been downhill for him ever since he did the debate with DeSantis.
It really
DeSantis
has been,
smoked him.
even before the L.A. fires.
Yeah.
It took a bad turn. And we said before that debate, when he steps outside of that blue bubble, he's going to learn that the big stage is very different, and the 80-20 stuff, came back at him hard. And then you look at his incompetence as a governor. I mean, just talking about what you have to go through. When you look at all of the hurricanes and storms that Governor DeSantis in Florida has dealt with as governor and how he's handled him. That's a governor, and on those days, he's not red or blue, he's governor. Well, you can't, he's been weak from day one. Newsome has wanted to be the rock star. The rock star days are over, but certainly when things are going on, especially during the wildfires, you've got to care. You've got to have a conviction in your heart for the safety of the people and their property in California during those wildfires, and he didn't care at all.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America. We are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. You and I, back a couple of years ago, when the Democrats were desperate, I mean, even back then, they didn't want Kamala Harris and they didn't want Joe Biden. And it's when a couple of years before the election, all of a sudden, Gavin Newsome came to the forefront.
Yeah.
And I went, well, that's who they want.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They want They want Gavin Newsome. He's got the Pat Riley, former coach of the L.A. Lakers, the Pat Riley late 80s, early 90s hair.
Gavin with the good hair.
Gavin with the good hair. And
that's what Michael Rappaport calls him.
And it was like, now the only problem he has is the fact that he can easily be attacked as the governor of California. And do you wish to be California?
Right.
And that's all you need to do. That's all you need to say. You don't need to get into the specifics. Vote for Gavin Newsome if you wish the United States to be like California. You don't have to do much more than that. And we had said it way back then. Mm-hmm. And then he got on with DeSantis.
Oh.
But and just got that debate that he did and just got smoked.
With the little bobblehead thing going on, his shoulders moving.
And, and at that point you saw, I mean, he wasn't, his job approval rating, his favorability went down even among Democrats.
Yeah.
And, we don't know who we want. And then, the fires hit, and that has just, devastated him. But even now, let's play this first and we'll comment on it. This is Victor, the great conservative columnist, Victor David Hanson, was on Fox News last night and talked about what he's calling the Newsome meltdown. Here we go.
Reaction tonight to this, Victor.
Yeah. I don't think I've seen a meltdown of a modern politician ever, as we've seen with him the last 3 days. He's polling 27% popularity. 2% of the Democratic Party thinks he should be their next standard bearer. He picked a fight with Donald Trump and called the ICE legal efforts to deport illegal aliens. He said it was reckless, it was chaotic. He sided with them. Then he said it wasn't violent. Then he begged Tom Homan to come after him with this kind of braggadocio, come on, tough guy, come and get me. And then he picked a fight with the Treasury Secretary, and he announced that because we pay $80 billion more than we get, we might not pay any taxes to the federal government at all. I mean, that's 1% of the federal revenue is California's so-called imbalance. But that was a felony to advise California taxpayers not to submit to the IRS what they owe. So he's just thrashing around. And then you look at the polls, 54% of the people, even with this hysteria, want the deportations to continue. And we had the 100-day polls, and the biggest demographic that was for Donald Trump's policies were Hispanics at 62%. So it's Orwellian. It's almost like you want to shake him and say, do you really think the American people are behind you when people are burning the flag of the country they say they have to stay here even though they're illegally here, and they're waving the flag of the country under no circumstances they want to go back? That is insane. And the violence and spitting on the flag, burning the American flag and saying, I got to burn the flag and I have to stay here and I'm going to wave the flag of the country that don't dare put me back to it. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, he makes a good point. You had pointed out yesterday with the whole, well, maybe we shouldn't pay our taxes thing from Newsom. And you pointed out that, well, we're talking about individual taxpayers here. This is the individual taxpayer. But Victor David Hanson points out essentially what you have here is a sitting governor advising people or suggesting at least that they shouldn't pay their federal taxes. Well, you can't do that. You've crossed a line when you do that because it may not be anything that is necessarily illegal at this point in the way that he phrased it, in just a suggestion. But imagine if you had a number of people in California who decided not to pay their federal tax based on that. Their individual tax that they owe based on, we shouldn't be paying Trump. And you had a governor suggest that that would be one of the remedies here in responding to the Trump administration.
Well, that's why I said he's gone to Hollywood and has gotten Wesley Snipes to advise him on how to proceed, forward with this.
Yeah, you said that yesterday.
If people don't know, Wesley Snipes, the actor, ended up doing a few years in jail because he evaded taxes.
Right.
You don't go to jail because you can't pay your taxes. You go to jail because you evade them.
Right.
And that's what he did, and thought that, he bought into the thing that, well, it's voluntary.
Right.
Well, no, it's not voluntary.
No.
The first level of enforcement is voluntary.
Right.
Which is you
process your taxes and you pay what you owe.
Right.
You do that. You don't do that. You're not forced by anyone to do that, but it is, of course, the law.
Now, use every argument you want. It's not going to work.
Right.
The precedent has been set, and whether you like it or not, but I think he was gone already before this. I think the last nail in the coffin was the wildfires.
I think so too.
This was almost. I don't. It just was so. It was so bad. It was just. And then yesterday, when he was like, well, these people, we need to punish them. The people that are committing the violent acts in the street. It's like he was trying to reclaim it, like somebody came to him, one of his advisors, and said, hey, idiot, you can't be doing this.
Well, the police officers there in that state, the local police officers in the state, are having to deal with this. It becomes especially dangerous for them.
Yeah.
We can talk about the response, right? The 2 hours that it takes or took in terms of the response. And we can talk about who made that decision, how did that happen? Someone pointing out that, the headquarters is right there. They weren't, it's only like an 8-minute walk. I think they actually put that map out there to show everybody there's basically no reason it should take 2 hours to respond. They got the, what do we get the excuse? The big excuse was, well, there was traffic. Yeah. But at the end of it, on the big picture, you've got local officers who are in harm's way in protecting local citizens there. We can have the conversation about leadership. We can have the conversation about Mayor Bass. We can have the conversation about the governor. But those officers are in danger when they're having to be in that situation. And that has to come back at the governor. I don't know how it doesn't come back at the mayor. But I mean, like, quickly. That should be the immediate boomerang effect of why in the world would you do this to police officers? But these are people who believe that the job of the local enforcement is to battle against and protect illegal immigrants from the federal enforcement. By the way, this goes beyond any sanctuary policy. As bad as sanctuary policy is, sanctuary policy was, we're not going to, or was based in, we're not going to use our resources in order to assist the federal government.
Right.
It's still, again, horrible policy. But this goes even beyond that. If your stance is that our officers, our enforcement, our resources should be to battle against those agents and work against them at every turn. That's a very different level of sanctuary policy. That is essentially local government going to war with the federal government.
Let's go to David in North Carolina. David, you're on Red Eye Radio. Hi, David.
Hi. It's not fair. You guys put me on after the great Victor David Hanson. But I'll do my best.
Sorry.
You said something about, they said battle, and this is just a quick preamble, but the left accuses Republicans of using the word fight. Well, it's just a word, but they actually fight. But that doesn't count. Yeah, it's ironic, but they're full of ironies. But you're talking about the press, and okay. So
that's okay. That's okay. Look,
I keep saying,
but I sit there and I'm just, at times I'm speechless because I can't believe the Democrats are doing it. So I can understand you going, but it's just, I can't believe they're doing this.
Because David, it doesn't make any sense. None of this computes with logical thinkers.
Well, there's a thing of gaslighting in the press, and I told your call screener, there's a quote we all know and heard a lot lately, that a lie told 1,000 times becomes a truth. And I guess that was from the Third Reich or from Goebbels. But there's another way to look at it, that the truth told 1,000 times can possibly become the truth. And I'm talking, and I'm in support of what Trump is doing. He is pointing out that just being here illegally is illegal, and without a valid amnesty claim or work visa, which is a legal reason to be here, perhaps under certain circumstances, deportation is normal. And it's interesting that the left, by having these riots, are bringing attention to the fact about basic law.
Yeah.
And the more they do it, the better it is. And it's kind of fortunate about this particular riot that it is much limited in scope compared to what the press would have us think, that the whole country is upset with Trump and fighting against him. And that may come to that. I hope not. But if they're bringing attention to the fact that he is trying to deport illegals, many of whom are violent, but none of them should be here, and he's even offered them a convenient way out and a promise that they would not be discriminated against if they voluntarily left and reapplied. So he's in other words, he's focusing on the very fact of legal or illegal entrance to the country.
Right.
And if he continues to focus on that, the American people just might get it.
Well, that's it, because there doesn't need to be, as I mentioned earlier, David, And thank you for the call. We greatly appreciate your thoughts. But it doesn't need to be a qualifier that they have committed violent crimes or are gang members, only that they are here illegally. And that's where the media, and David points that out, something I said earlier, but the media is trying to build that qualifier as if it is a qualifier, but it is not. The mission by ICE has never been, we are only going to deport. You're going to prioritize the safety of the American people. Prioritizing is one thing, but it is about deporting people who are here illegally.
Well, you just made the point, though, right there, where we yesterday were saying, what the hell are they doing? When Gavin Newsome and then Glendale came out with their statement, we're doing this for public safety.
Right.
You mean you're going to allow illegal immigrant criminals in your community, and you're trying to convince the public that's for public safety?
Exactly.
Public safety from what? People rioting over the fact that you're cooperating with the federal government to get rid of illegal immigrant criminals out of the country?
Right.
And so, yeah, I mean, they did talk. I mean, the administration talked about we're going to prioritize, and that's a big job in itself, illegal immigrant criminals and people with deportation orders already.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's been the majority of their focus. But Homan said just yesterday, I think it was on MSNBC, I'll find it. They said, are you saying nobody else is getting caught up? And he goes, no, not at all. People are getting caught up in it. Absolutely.
In fact, I would.
And he goes, if you're an illegal immigrant, if we're targeting somebody and you get caught up, you're an illegal immigrant, you're going to go through the process of being removed from the country.
Right.
Absolutely.
This might be our immediate mission, but it's not.
Right.
The entire mission includes anyone who is here illegally.
So I think they sort of took when the president, said, well, we're going to prioritize this first.
Right.
It didn't mean that if you're in the country illegally that we're just going to ignore you.
Right.
That was never the case. But they seem to be trying to throw out that narrative
Yes.
that that's what the president said.
And that should be a qualifier because that's important. They want that to be essentially, they want people to believe that that's the law, that we only deport people who are hardened criminals or gang members. And the answer, that is not the case.
866-90 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Now, this is where a congressperson should be censured. This is Representative Jaya Paul. Okay, listen to this now.
Mm-hmm.
Listen to what she says.
And Donald Trump calling out the National Guard unconstitutionally, illegally, without the governor's authorized approval. As Jaime said, that's something that has not happened since 1965. And it's hard to imagine that this time the National Guard were sent out to attack protesters that were exercising their constitutional obligation.
Attacking protesters?
Nope. False. That's a lie.
Absolutely a lie. Then this is where you get to the point of inside the federal government. There is a push to lie about federal employees and federal law enforcement to get people enraged to justify them attacking back.
Right. Wow.
Number one, that's not happening. They were not sent out for that.
No.
She is using incendiary language, which is completely and totally, there is no basis of fact at all on that.
Right.
And she lied, and she's a sitting congressperson.
Yeah. No, this is, again, where we knew there was going to be some kind of battle from the radical left and local leaders and how that was going to play out, knowing after Trump won that ICE was going to be enforcing the law. And when you have sanctuary policy and sanctuary mindset, And now on the federal level, lawmakers telling lies like this. Again, this is the hill they want to die on. This is the proverbial hill that they choose to die on. And it's an 80-20 issue. They don't see it. I don't think they care. I think they look at it and say, well, 80% of Americans are idiots, or we need to shout louder and convince that 80% until we're winning. I really don't think that they care at all that it's an 80-20 issue. They certainly don't care in California. Gavin Newsom thinks he can win anything, anytime. Or maybe he doesn't care if he wins again. Maybe he doesn't care.
Well, I think it's what they believe. And this is where I disagree with the conservatives out there that are trying to say, well, they actually don't believe this. They're just doing this to get elected. Then you believe it.
No, you believe it. Your conviction lies there. What else am I to believe? Because if you think it's wrong, if you think the opposite, why in the world would you want to hold that office? You're just pretending?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, no. Gavin Newsom is weak as a governor, but make no mistake, he's not pretending.
Catch all 5 hours of the show live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thanks so much for being here this morning. This is Byron York here on with Fox News last night. And the New York Times article, the Mexican flag becomes a potent L.A. protest symbol. Here we go.
Well, the New York Times said that Republicans are trying to make a big deal out of this. But, in fact, these people are just expressing pride in their heritage. Now, obviously, we've seen other flags. You mentioned earlier in the program about the Confederate flag. That would cause an entirely different reaction at the New York Times, and it has many times. But this is part of the problem here, and this links to what we were just talking about Democrats. They've put themselves on the wrong side of something big again.
Yeah.
It really is amazing.
But they don't care. You know, they've done this I don't know how many times. They don't care. They don't see it as being on the wrong side. They don't care 80-20. None of that matters to them. Look, if the law and the Constitution and citizens' rights don't matter to them, why would they care about anything else? Where do they put their convictions? Think about this. It helps them. The chaos helps them. A broken border helps them. Politically, you know, remember the mayor of D.C.? Well, we can't sustain this. Texas is meant to handle this.
Yes.
We're not designed to handle this. You know, and at that time, the mayor of Del Rio, by the way, during that whole international bridge thing, the mayor of Del Rio was an openly gay liberal Democrat. But like many border town mayors, they will tell you, we don't have the resources locally to handle this. Thank God for the Border Patrol. Thank God for ICE. Thank God for Governor Abbott, who, if people wanted to go to Chicago that were here from other countries, you want to go to Chicago, you want to go to New York, you want to go to D.C., we'll give you a bus ride. And it turned out the federal government was doing more of that. Biden was doing more of that than Abbott. But in the media, of course, Governor Abbott had to be the bad guy. Except it turned around because with a liberal rank and file, the citizens of those cities started saying, to the extent, they were outraged to the extent that Mayor Adams in New York City went to the courts and said, save us from our own sanctuary policy.
No, God, yes. Remember that? Yeah. He actually went.
You got to save us from our own sanctuary policy that my party put in place in New York City. Please help us. The courts laughed, as they should. But it's not funny because the damage that is done over and over again, not by anybody who's peaceful, and it's stupid that we even have to interject that. It's by people who wish to come here and know they can come and go as they please and create and commit crimes over and over again. When there is an open border, they come and go as they please. They commit a crime, they can leave. They're completely off the radar, and they can get away with those crimes because they don't exist in the system. They know how to play this thing. That's what you're looking to protect people from. It's why you vet. They didn't even vet them medically. During COVID, the arguably greatest quarterback of all time, Tom Brady, couldn't go out by himself and jog in a park in Florida or anywhere else. But people coming across, they were just given, oh, okay, well, you can go here, you can go there, and nobody was vetted for the pandemic. This entire thing shows you again where the priorities of the left are and have always been. This is not going to change. This isn't any different than who they've always been, except for the fact that they believe this is one of the tactics. They're trying to make this another civil rights movement. They want this to be a new civil rights era, but it has nothing to do with you if you're a citizen.
Let me ask you this: if the economy's okay, because you still see, well, this may hurt Democrats, but Democrats still have a chance, coming up because of gerrymandered districts. And I guess the question would be, and by the way, I mean that favors Republicans at times. I'm not saying that it's unfair.
Right.
I'm just giving the
way it goes.
The political demographics. I wasn't
exactly
whining or complaining. I was just making a statement of an observation.
The changing demographics in districts.
But
yes.
what I'm sitting there thinking to myself, if I'm a political consultant now for the Republicans, what all these issues come up, and they just didn't appear in 2024. They've been here for a while. I live, I know everybody's sick of it now, but I live by 3 blocks in Jasmine Crockett's congressional district.
Yep.
She won a couple of years ago, 85% to 15. There wasn't even a Republican there.
Right.
It was a libertarian candidate. That's how blue of a district it is. Now all the districts surrounding it are red, and that's what you want. You put everybody into one. Okay, we'll give them that district. They can have that one forever. But when is it? How long will Democrats put up with a party? Everyone knows what the problem is. And I look, for example, I was looking at Bill Maher. the other day. Well, I still think the Republicans are worse. How? And he really couldn't explain it.
Right.
He didn't get into the minutia of it because you can't actually make that argument.
Right.
The Republicans have done nothing like what the Democrats did on the border.
No.
Not even closer. The Republicans have never done what the Democrats did in attempting to censor social media.
Right.
And censor people. Never done anything close to that.
Nope.
You look at the open borders, you look at the radical transgender movement. These are issues where they're crazy.
And look at the cover-up of Biden's cognitive issues. Look, when everybody could see it and knew there was a cover-up and knew that he wasn't in charge when he was in the White House. That's unprecedented.
Look, you listen to this show, if we believe Trump's wrong, we got no problem criticizing him or any other Republican.
Right.
We always have.
Right.
Since I'm in a talk show host,
I've gone down the list.
Yeah, for when people sort of go, I can't believe that you're attacking Republicans. Well, I've been doing it since '89 when they suck on the issues.
Yep.
And when they're not conservative. I got no problem with it.
Right.
But still, there is no other choice.
No.
There is no other. It's a binary choice. Sorry, Andrew Yang. It's a binary choice. You see them out there this weekend. We're really getting momentum.
Yeah, no,
and then they're just getting pounded saying, by the way, not right, not left, not right, just right. Just the right amount. We're not right.
Yeah.
We're the right amount,
Right.
but we're also not left.
Yeah.
Tell us what the hell you believe.
Yeah, the Goldilocks party.
And so, no, I don't. Are the Republicans right on every issue? No. Is Trump right on every issue? No. You've heard us complain about it.
Right.
But they're right on the vast majority of issues, and the Democrats are absolutely not just wrong, but insane on the vast majority of the issues. When does it actually, I know there's been a movement of maybe 15 million people. How can the Democrats keep, what we saw in 2024? There's basically a change to get Trump elected. Roughly 50, anywhere between 10 and 20 million people change their vote.
Yeah.
How do you get 50 million to do it? Are people just going to, well, I don't care I'm a Democrat. I've always been a Democrat. Well, they're for outright murder now. Well, okay, I'll give them a couple of elections here. Now, just manslaughter or murder? Not another. They're in favor now of capital murder. Premeditated capital murder.
Well, it used to be where we could
But
say...
they're not for genocide, are they?
Exactly. Well, it used to be where we could say, well, if you're a one-issue person, all right, that's your one issue. But anymore, it's like, well, sorry, but murder's not my issue. I support the Democrats because of... What? You can't... Listen.
Murder's not my issue.
A secure nation, that's not my issue. That's not what I'm looking for. I vote for them because
That'd
of...
be the line of the year.
Yeah, no, I mean...
I'm sorry. Well, I understand. I understand your concern about the fact that my political party is for outright capital murder, but that's not my issue.
Right. I'm more of an equity person.
You mean, like the Metallica album,
Yes,
Kill 'Em All.
That's right.
Equity.
Exactly.
All right,
yes,
okay.
Equity. That's right. It isn't anything of what it was before because of how far way far left the Democratic Party has gone. Radical, I'm going to have to come up with a new word because it seems like old hack now because it doesn't even cover it. Extreme is not even close.
No, it's not.
To be clear, Eric and Gary are against murder.
Yes. Far left winger is much too moderate.
Right.
For the Democratic
Exactly.
Party.
That sounds like a horrible 80s and 90s band. Far left winger.
I mean, it's just...
Get Kip on the phone, would you? It's It is just.
Oh my gosh!
It is so insane.
I know. That's
because you every day you say, okay, but how much further can you go?
Well, that's why when we had the caller in the last half hour, when he was like sort of hesitating a little bit, I related to that completely.
Right, we've
because
been there.
As you can tell right now, it's just like I look and I go, there is this perverted sense of awe.
Yeah.
That how can this continue to? How long can this continue to go on? How can they continue to be completely in a bizarro, almost hallucinating state,
right,
of not even being, close to being able to connect any type of critical thinking dots,
right,
completely delusional,
right,
no science, no logic. This is like the Democrats have become completely, totally 180 degrees from Mr. Spock. They're the anti-Spock party. There is no logic at all to any of their arguments.
Yeah. No, that's
which is why I've said I'd like to have the Vulcan mind meld to find out just how they think, just for a moment. Now, it might fry my brain forever, but I'm fascinated by their thought process. I really am.
Yeah.
Because it's so bizarre.
It really is.
And so, like a lot of you, when you go, I just can't believe this. I've done this professionally now for 43 years in radio, and I'm still going, I agree with you. It makes no sense.
It's outside of reality completely.
866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
Hey, it's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Wow. So there you go. I'm just shaking my head still. We never got to the Terry Moran thing. I'm reading, for the reporter for ABC News.
Yeah.
Here it is. ABC News staffers PO'd at Terry Morgan over stupid verbal assault on Trump aide Stephen Miller. He should be fired.
Yeah. Moran. You said Morgan the second time. Moran.
I
Terry
said Morgan?
Yeah. The first time you said Moran.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Terry Moran.
But, yeah, he's they should be. This is, he decided to go that route, but at least, again, everybody gets to see him for what he truly is, an activist.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you
for being here. All right, so what's going on with the big, beautiful bill? It's still moving along in the Senate.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's going to end up, I have no idea where they're going to go in just a little over 2 weeks. Because, let me see, 2 weeks from Friday, that's when they want to, it would be 2 weeks from the next Friday would be 4th of July. So they've got about 3 weeks still to get this done. But reading this here from thehill.com, because really, if you're just going through your normal day, you're hearing nothing about the big, beautiful bill.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I mean, the L.A. riots are now, dominating everything. It's really interesting because very quickly here on the L.A. riots, how it was, they're over-exaggerating it. They're making it sound like the entire city. Well, we didn't say that.
No.
But now you watch I was going through X and looking at the mainstream media coverage, for example, of what was going on in Austin and in Dallas, and they're making it sound like now the left's trying to make it sound like it is bigger than it actually is.
Right. Yeah.
Because they're trying to push the fact
that the movement is bigger.
That the movement's a lot bigger. It was not at all a massive protest in Dallas.
No.
And the one in Austin, I couldn't tell how many it was. It didn't look like there was 100,000 people or 10,000 people or 5,000 people or 1,000 people. It looked maybe a couple of hundred that were there at that point.
It's Austin.
Yeah, that is true. Yes.
There are people on the streets whether they're protesting or not. I mean, what are we protesting today? We're trying to unionize Dairy Queen. I mean, I don't know. It's Austin. That's just the way it goes. So that's just to bring up Austin. And there's protesters in Austin. Yeah, I know. And tie-dye T-shirts. We get it. It's Austin. But you're right.
And so like the big, beautiful bill, nobody's even covering that at all.
It's not anywhere.
I mean, you do have website, thehill.com has this article.
Yeah.
Hardline House conservatives swing for the fences in their asks to the GOP, Senate GOP, in the mega bill. Hardline conservatives in the House are making a broad push for recommendations to make the one big, beautiful bill of President Trump's tax cut and spending priorities even more conservative. The 10-page memo labeled to Senate Republicans from House conservatives with input from members of the House Freedom Caucus, while not being officially from the group, and shared with The Hill, shows the hardliners swinging for the fences with numerous suggestions to change the mega bill. Those include some controversial suggestions that were previously rejected by the House, like putting restrictions on the Medicaid federal medical assistance percentage that was expanded under Obamacare, and further reining in the ability of states to extract more federal Medicaid matching dollars through provider taxes imposed on healthcare providers. They call for ramping up the repeal of the green energy incentives, a position opposed by just over a dozen House GOP moderates who wrote to the Senate last week to request the leaders improve the green energy tax credits rather than eliminate them. By the way, any House GOP member, you want to primary people, those are the people you primary.
Yeah. Yep.
The memo calls to scale back the increase to the state and local SALT tax deduction, which the bill increases from $10,000 to $40,000, with a phase-out for income above $500,000, a compromise reached after intense and testing negotiations with blue state Republicans, and a measure considered critical to ensuring the bill makes it to the president's desk. And it pitches increasing a new 3.5% tax on remittance that migrants send to their home countries, among other measures, some of which were not fully explained, like the one right there. The memo calls to scale back the increase to the state and local tax deduction, but they don't say to what here in this article. So the House cleared the one big, beautiful act, blah, 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 blah. Leaders have the goal of rubber stamping the bill by July 4th, a timeline that's seen as ambitious by many in the GOP and their allies outside Congress. Well, I mean, that's going to be a problem, right there. Look, one of the things is, there's this debate going on. You had Stephen Miller out there was one of the first, promoting it. And then you see other Republicans, you see Lutnick, whatever, saying, well, we can't cut in this bill. We can't. You can only cut in the yearly budget. Well, that isn't true.
Right.
As you can see right here, there are things that they could do that would actually cut what's being spent.
Yeah.
And so, they're trying to push it through by saying, look, to the hardliners, you're not going to get what you want. We got to get this thing through, and we cannot get it through without the moderates. Can you get it through without the conservatives? I guess we'll see. But I think they care. I think they care more about the moderates. That would be more for the tax cuts, but not actually for cuts to the budget, than they do with the conservatives that want the tax cuts and a much more drastic cut in spending. This isn't a Republican. This isn't your father's Republican Party when it comes to cutting.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And so I don't see it. I don't see that happening. I think the compromise is always going to be what we thought it would be, which is sorry, Chip Roy, sorry, Rand Paul, we're going to go in this direction here. Why? Because the public, the Republican Party, the rank and file voter is not calling for massive cuts to the budget.
The pressure isn't on by the rank and file, and that's just where we are. Our audience notwithstanding, but as a group, all of us fiscal conservatives are getting smaller and smaller. The group is getting smaller and smaller. And it's quite unfortunate, but that's where we are. And so the point is, they don't feel on Capitol Hill this massive pressure. Where the pressure is politically is for the president to extend the tax cuts. And that's going to have to, that's really, for him, that's the win, right? That's the big win. And on the SALT thing, again, if you don't get this bill done and the tax cuts expire and SALT goes back to unlimited, well, would the push on Capitol Hill by the president and his people, and we saw that over the last couple of weeks. Don't you want that? If you move too much, you're not going to get this done. Everything expires. The tax cuts go away. So taxes are raised on people. That's what they'll say. The tax cuts go away. So people see their taxes raised. And then the SALT, if you're worried about the blue states and that whole thing, because in the Senate they seem to have a greater concern about that. Well, no, we don't want that. We want to keep the limit at 10,000 at the very least. Well, the limit goes away completely. It's unlimited again if you let it expire. So there's your conundrum. Now, the question is, what's more doable? Because the president made the point when he was up there, I think it was last week when he was talking to the Senate, look, you move one thing, and then you could lose 3 votes over here. You move another thing, you could lose 3 votes over in the House. You could lose those votes here. And remember, it was only passed by 1 vote in the House. But is it possible to move something and still maintain that wide margin of 1 vote over in the House? Because that requires, okay, now you got to go whip the votes in the House. And where do you move that? We know Chip Roy, we know Massey, we know, Chip Roy ultimately was a yes, by the way. So, do you lose a Chip Roy somewhere? I don't know. I don't know if there again is any room at all in the House, or if they've gotten down to where it finally is going to be with that 1 margin, and moving anything is, like the president said, that risk of losing just the 1, or 2 votes.
When you see, because we had just done the story from thehill.com that was talking about the conservatives in the Senate that want more major cuts for Medicaid, then you have this story that Senate Majority Leader John Thune is looking for a reset. A reset?
Yeah.
And to build momentum on President Trump's big, beautiful bill after it struggled through a tough week on Capitol Hill. Trump's July 4th deadline for signing the bill is slipping away as GOP senators battle one another over spending cuts and other issues in the House-passed bill. But Thune wants to get the legislation back on track by convening small working groups to hash out key components of the bill. According to Republicans familiar with this plan, Thune is hoping to build enough momentum in the Senate's various committees that the components of the bill come together in a grand compromise by the end of the month. What would the goal be on that, though? But rank-and-file senators who have some of the strongest objections to the legislation have yet to see key pieces of the text, and Elon Musk's scathing criticism of the bill as a mountain of disgusting pork is creating political headwinds for the legislation. A GOP senator familiar with Thune's strategy said he will break out portions of the bill to Senate Republican working groups in an effort to make progress on the sections that face the strongest objections, such as nearly $800 billion in spending reductions for Medicaid and $267 billion in cuts to the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance program. Thune's going to do the same thing he did for other things where folks have deeper issues. He put smaller groups together. No one is going to be able to say they weren't listened to. Thune's plan involved a broader swath of his caucus, and negotiations on a must-pass bill is a departure from Mitch McConnell, who tended to keep the details of major deals close to his vest before shortly unveiling them, the senator said.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you can do all the groups you want. What are you going to agree on?
Right, yeah. Yeah, that's what it comes down to. And I just, whipping the votes is going to be just so delicate. I don't know how you get that done. But ultimately, the party itself, combined, House and Senate, there has to be that understanding, very clear understanding. If you don't get this done, the tax cuts expire. And so does the salt, $10,000 salt limit.
The biggest obstacle the bill faces is that many Republican senators are demanding more deficit reduction, but a group of lawmakers, including Senator Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, Josh Hawley, and Terry Moran, are objecting to the biggest deficit reduction in the bill currently, hundreds of billions of dollars in Medicaid spending cuts for able-bodied males. Josh Hawley, like I said, is a cultural conservative and almost a fiscal socialist.
Yeah, we're seeing it play out.
We're seeing it play out. I mean, he's the one, and we say socialist, that's strong words for him. He's the one that wants to cap credit card rates. There's a ton of stuff that he wants to do.
Right.
That we look at and go, sorry.
Well, if he's mentioned in the same sentence on an issue with Murkowski and Collins, you know exactly where it stands.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at J.J. Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on roadside inspections. Drivers must always be prepared for a roadside inspection. This means drivers should always have their personal, vehicle, and company credentials organized and ready, and having any shipment paperwork such as bills of lading or hazardous materials shipment emergency response information organized and ready for the inspection official. Just an FYI, the top 2 violations written against drivers every year, as well as during Operation Road Check, are log general form and manner and log not current. Both are completely avoidable if the driver keeps the log accurate, compliant, and current at all times. Having the vehicle ready for inspection involves the driver conducting daily inspections and making sure any problems that are discovered are immediately corrected. Vehicle readiness also requires the company to make sure that the vehicle is current on all scheduled maintenance and that the maintenance schedule is adequate. This will make sure the driver is being given a sound vehicle to start with. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller & Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. So 3 weeks out from what they want the big beautiful bill to be done. Remember, this is where you've got the Senate, comes up with their bill, and then it goes to the House. See if the House will pass it or want changes. This means the entire shebang is done by really 3 weeks from Friday. 3 weeks from Thursday.
Yeah.
Because Friday, I believe the 4th is on a Friday.
Yeah, it is.
And so you'd want it done by the Thursday. I don't know how that's going to happen. I don't know how they're going to be able to get the votes. Because really the only thing that's going to pass the House right now is the House bill. Who's going to compromise?
Yeah, I haven't heard of anything that would tell me that there is some compromise in the House. I mean, that's kind of the point I was making in the last segment. Unless, someone would have to tell me how you re-whip the votes if the Senate moves too much on this bill and sends it back. I don't know how you re-whip the votes in the House and still maintain that whopping 1-vote margin. Because, again, the president himself last week or week before, was saying, well, we've got to be careful. In the Senate, you move one thing, you lose 3 votes. Or you move something else, you lose 3 votes. So you really don't have much room here. And again, I don't know how you get that done and first of all, you got to get the Senate votes, in order to get it back over there. But I don't know how that works. This is a mess. When we were talking about the continuing resolution, and it was told to the fiscal conservatives, hey, just pass this and you can fight your fight down the road. And I made the point, well, nothing's going to change in the makeup of the House or the Senate between now and that fight later down the road. And here we are. And that's the point, is that you're still dealing with things that are, again, horrendous. The fact that we don't want any change, again, as a public, is horrible. And so there's no political pressure on real cuts, either in the House or the Senate, with few exceptions.
And you can see the desperation. I mean, you've seen it with Lutnick whenever he's out there.
Yeah.
Or even Bessent the other day was out there promoting the fact, yes, but they're not counting the $2.8 trillion in tariffs we're going to collect over the next 10 years.
Yeah.
Well, stop doing it. That's an act of desperation. The reason you can't count it is that is not, I mean, you're counting it. What the beautiful thing is now the administration's admitting it's a tax on the American people. It's a tax that they'll collect.
Yeah.
But the $2.8 trillion, by the way, that would be $280 billion, and they were promising tariffs would bring in, remember, $700 to $800 billion just a month and a half ago. And we said, no, they're not going to bring even that amount in. But it's not it technically isn't a congressional tax. The CBO can't put it in because we don't know if the president's going to hold to those numbers.
Right. It can change way too quickly.
Right. He can change whenever he wants. It isn't a permanent tax that's been put in by Congress.
Right.
So you can't get it. And the fact that they keep pushing that as the way to balance this budget, to me, is actually a weak point. And you can see it every time it's on X. The vast majority of comments from Republican conservatives are, well, you can't use that. It's obvious because we don't know if the tariffs are permanent or not.
Right.
Catch all 5 hours of the show live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. All right, ABC News staffers are PO'd. This is from the New York Post now, okay? I don't know how much of this story I actually buy, all right?
Okay. All right.
ABC News staffers are really ticked off at Terry Moran.
Right.
And some are calling for his head after he blasted Trump aide Stephen Miller as a world-class hater, the Post has learned. Moran on social media over the weekend on a post that's since been deleted was condemned by ABC News executives for lacking objectivity and impartiality. The veteran newsman was suspended pending further evaluation Sunday, but some colleagues felt the punishment did not go far enough. He should be fired, one ABC News insider told the Post on Monday. People inside are ticked off at Terry for screwing things up for the network. Everything that Trump has said about the media, that they are haters and they are biased, Moran has proved it true, the source explained, adding that journalists are supposed to check your biases at the door and only deal with the facts. Somebody from ABC said that.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Firing Moran may serve Deborah O'Connell, president of the ABC News Group and Networks, who is in the throes of trimming the budget amid larger cuts at Disney. A source with knowledge said a journalist with Moran's level of experience, namely a senior-based correspondent who has covered the White House and co-anchored Nightline, likely makes between $600,000 and $900,000 a year. That could save the network a lot of money, and she would demonstrate to the White House that ABC takes the issue seriously, the person said. ABC News declined to comment. Moran did not respond. Request seeking a comment.
Yeah.
His early morning post on Sunday tore into Trump's deputy chief of staff. The thing about Stephen Miller is not that he is the brains behind Trumpism. Yes, he is one of the people who conceptualizes the impulses of the Trumpist movement and translate them into policy. But that's not what is interesting about Miller. Moran called wrote on X. It's not brains, it's bile. Miller is a man who is richly endowed with the capacity for hatred. He's a world-class hater, the ABC News reporter added. You can see this just by looking at him, because you can see his hatreds are his spiritual nourishment. He eats his hate, end of quote. So, yeah, I wonder, a source called the attack on Miller stupid. Another person inside ABC News said Terry's always had a high opinion of his opinions.
Wow.
But do I believe there's like a tremendous amount of angst at ABC?
Yeah.
I would.
There might be one or two people that said it's stupid, but you're not going to see this huge uprising.
No, I
what I want to know is,
I believe
is
that.
Stephanopoulos still mad?
Schmoopy's husband.
Is he still angry? It's, this whole drama. By the way, why delete the post? It's how he feels. We know what ABC News is.
I don't think
Were they worried about?
I've ever deleted any post ever.
Well, I mean, he doesn't. I'm trying to, I'm reading through the X post, the quote from the X post. He deleted it, but as they have it here at the New York Post, it's not anything they're worried about getting sued over, right? He didn't accuse Miller of doing something.
No.
So it's not a liability issue here.
Yeah.
It's Moran just being a liberal. Why is that all of a sudden something worthy of a suspension at ABC News? Oh, he's supposed to be a journalist. Yeah, right. Give me a break.
Whatever.
Nobody cares about that anymore. He clearly doesn't care about it, and you guys know that he doesn't care about it, and you keep him on anyway because you guys don't care about it at ABC News. It's just the way it is. Now, are they using it as an opportunity to cut a staff member that's, making pretty good change doing what he does? I mean, they have plenty of people that hate Trump and his people. Anybody can do your job at ABC News. Anybody can hate Trump. We can pay somebody $40,000 a year to hate Trump.
So you'd like to work here for ABC Disney? Is that the case? Yeah, I certainly will. Well, what's your opinion on politics today? Trump sucks.
Yeah.
You're in.
How does $40,000 a year sound? That's where they. So I don't know. I mean, maybe that's the opportunity that they're looking for. All the legacy media. You see, what's her name, Gail over at CBS. The word is she's on her way out because another massive pay cut. It's happening. So maybe they're using this as an excuse. I don't know. But I'm just wondering why they see this as an offense worth a suspension, knowing the makeup of these individuals.
Would he have been better just to say he's Stephen Miller is Hitler?
I think he could have, posted anything and it wouldn't have been a surprise, after just knowing who these individuals are.
Is he a sacrificial lamb so they can say that we're journalists but still continue on their mission?
Yeah.
Do you need a sacrificial lamb every once in a while to pretend that you are unbiased in your news reporting?
Well,
I'm asking that as a serious
It has to serve another purpose, too, and it could be that, okay, it helps us with our budget, and he becomes the sacrificial lamb. But it doesn't buy them anything. I don't know if they're anticipating some kind of, pivot by the public that sees them as less biased because they took this action against Moran. It doesn't move the needle at all.
Here's what I love. This is interesting. Sources say Moran has close ties to ABC News Vice President and Washington, D.C. Bureau Chief Rick Klein. Moran has ingratiated himself with Klein by expressing that he had some Trump-friendly views, such as the importance of networks providing unbiased coverage geared toward the entire country, which has been a White House criticism of left-leaning networks, one of the sources said. Yeah, right. But the interview quickly turned testy, with Trump telling Moran that he agreed to sit down with the correspondent because he never heard of him. A source with knowledge said it wasn't that cut and dry, and that Trump officials held conversations with the network about possible interviewers, that they agreed on Moran because of his national reporting and White House experience. According to the reports, the president did not want to be interviewed by Stephanopoulos or star anchor David Muir, who he previously criticized for wrongly fact-checking him during a September presidential debate. A second source said, I was shocked that Trump picked Terry Moran. Said the second source, who had previously worked with Moran, Terry is a little pompous. He would weigh in on things he had nothing to do with. He always wanted to voice his opinion, even in emails that he was CC'd on. A source called the attack on Miller stupid. Terry has always had a high opinion of his opinions. ABC News said it has suspended Moran over concerns about him violating the outlet's standards on impartiality and objectivity.
Yeah. Okay.
I couldn't get through that with a straight face.
Yeah.
ABC News stands for objectivity and impartiality in its news coverage, and does not condone subjective personal attacks on others. The Post does not reflect the views of ABC News and violated our standards as a result. Terry Moran has been suspended pending further evaluation, a spokesperson previously told the Post. Now, just for full transparency, both you and I, years ago, over a decade ago, worked for ABC Disney. So,
yes,
just so you know that. Mm-hmm. And no, we were never disciplined by ABC for a lack of impartiality and objectivity.
They did hurt our feelings when they were asked about us one time. They said, who? But other than that.
The only time I came close to getting in trouble, and this would have been right before I started on the show with you and I was doing my local show, and I got my 5-year pin. And they came in, I was on the air, and they presented it to me. Here's your 5-year pin for being at ABC Disney. And I went, wow, look, I have a little pin, little box. I went, wow, thank you. It's a Goofy pin. It's got Goofy on it. They go, Gary, that's Pluto.
Oh. Yeah, you totally don't have kids.
Sorry.
Yeah, I got the Mickey pin for the 10-year.
Did you get the Mickey pin? I never. Yeah.
And a plaque for 11 years.
Yeah, we had sold. Yeah. We had sold by that time.
Yeah. Yeah, by the time you reach 10 years, yeah.
Yeah. We had sold Disney had sold by that point.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's but they never bothered us. But then again, we were always fair.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Whatever the hell that means.
Whatever.
I had to throw that out.
Yeah. We were fair and balanced. Listen, we report, you shut up.
We report, get off my lawn.
Yeah. We report, you pass me the coffee.
Pass me the beer nuts.
Yeah. It is, that whole blow up over Moran, it was like, why? What's changed? I mean, there are media groups that are, well, okay, here's the question. Let's go back to the reason for the cuts. The reason that they're having to make the cuts is because, again, legacy media is struggling. Do they think by pretending to be non-biased that it will bring people back? I mean, I guess that is a valid question. You see where the Warner Discovery is splitting off from its cable. So basically, the cable portion that they own, everything on cable is going to be a separate company from their streaming and movie and entertainment division. Well, that sounds like they're prepping the cable company to basically the cable version of the company to be sold. Mm-hmm. Because it's right now they're struggling. That portion of the company is in debt, so they're going to have 20% stake in the other part of the company to help them pay that debt down. But again, everything is changing drastically here. Is ABC in this case with Moran just trying to do anything they can to appease an audience that is shrinking? I don't know.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Download our Red Eye Radio app today. Why? Because our show ends in an hour. We have a 5-hour long show. We're through hour number 4 right now. When our show ends, it becomes our podcast. We record the entire show, and then you can listen whenever you want on our Red Eye Radio app. We make it so easy for you. Here's the story, though. CNN parent company Warner Brothers Discovery announced Monday that it will split into 2 publicly traded companies, cutting CNN off from the more profitable streaming business as the left-leaning network grapples with plummeting ratings. A restructuring will create one company focused on streaming and the other studio content, including HBO, Warner Brother Pictures, and DC Studios, and a second company, WBD Global Networks, which will house CNN, TNT Sports, Discovery, and other cable channels.
Yeah. And it sounds like, that just reeks of them eventually wanting to kind of spin off that company that has the cable channels. And when subscriptions keep dropping and dropping and dropping, it's just harder to keep up in terms of that revenue. So we'll see where it goes, I guess.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.